Hey all, it's Itsuchi here. Welcome back to my channel. Just wanted to talk about the new EX Hurricane Clash mode. Thank you so much for the positive feedback on the EX announcement trailer that I just did. So I just wanted to expound on that. Obviously the trailer kind of, I wouldn't say came out of nowhere. You guys obviously had a little bit of hype build up, but this mode I've obviously spent over a month working on to get it ready for you guys. And obviously it's not a combat mode necessarily, at least not the version that I showed off in the teaser demo. So I just wanted to kind of talk a little bit more about that Hurricane Clash mode and the two mini games that I've released so far and some of the others. And also I wanted to go over, as you see on screen, EX3 and some of the differences between EX3's Hurricane Clash mode and Ultimate Clash Ninja's Hurricane Clash mode. What makes them different and kind of how it works behind the scenes. I put a lot of effort into this and it's kind of cool on the back end. I really wanted to show you guys what that looks like on the back end in the editor. So first I wanted to show you guys obviously where this came from. For those who have never played EX3, let me start it up. For those who have never played EX3, EX3 is a Japan exclusive game. It was the third EX game and semi-last game released in Japan. This is what Revolution 3 was based off of, though surprisingly, Revolution 3 decided not to adapt EX3's best mode. I mean, it's wonky, but that's Clash Ninja. But this was a mode that they introduced in EX3 to kind of make EX3 stand apart. If anyone's ever played Dragon Blade Chronicles, the Dragon Blade Chronicles game is basically the EX3 story mode done better and also worse at the same time. So yeah, let's just start here. I will select Naruto just because my character, as if I couldn't select Jiraiya with Naruto. And I'll do the forest stage to start. So there are 5 stages. There's only 4, well, I'll get to that. There are 5 stages in the original EX3 mode. A forest, a desert, a mountain, and a coast, and then a Itachi dimension Tsukuyomi. Anyway, this is how Hurricane Clash works. It was just a 3D mode, and you could fight with certain characters. Not every character is playable in this mode. A lot of characters are. I just haven't unlocked them because I'm not grinding to get those characters. So this is kind of how it works. You just kind of go down these super linear paths. There'll be more twists and turns up ahead. And you can fight in 3D, and then you can also execute a jutsu specific to this mode. So each character has a Hurricane Clash mode jutsu that you can execute for 100% chakra. So this is kind of how it works. You just kind of run through. You don't actually have any camera control. The camera, if you are kind of slightly turning, the camera will rotate with you. But if you're running backwards, the camera will not rotate with you. It only rotates if you're running forward or a slight forward angle. Is the only time it'll ever rotate with the character. If you do turn around and you want the camera to follow, you press L, the L shoulder button, and the camera will rotate to the direction the character's facing. Since it uses the 3D, since it uses the 2.5D fighting system, like A and B buttons, that means the jump button has to be mapped to another button, so the jump button is now the R button, which is quite the strange choice. But I guess it makes sense if you wanted to keep the original Clash Ninja combat system but translate it in a 3D environment. It is very weird to play Clash Ninja in this perspective. It's not that it doesn't work, it just seems like it was, from my experience as a game designer playing this, it seems like a mode that had lots of potential and probably the vision the developers had when they thought upon this, in terms of translating Clash Ninja into a 3D game, was probably a lot, and I don't think that this was the complete mission. I think this is what happens when you have to develop a game every year, and you have limited time, limited resources, limited budget, and limited hardware being released on the Wii. Oh my gosh, this stretch is so painfully long. Okay, now we're here at the branching paths where you can see a little bit more of the intended version. So there's supposed to be lots of twists and turns and branching paths like here. This is kind of what most maps will, well, not most, but a lot of maps will be like, especially the forest once you get past that long stretch. It's just kind of twists and turns everywhere. You just fight a horde of a group of bad guys. They all have the same general look of being a rogue ninja. Some with masks, some without masks, some big, some small, some muscular, some fat. I love the fat guy, he's my favorite one. Also, they do have slightly different movesets. Some use jutsu, like fire jutsu, some use paper bombs, some use kunai, and some use swords. So they're not just copy-pasted. Oh, there's the fat guy. I love the fat guy. He's just so funny. Like, look, you can be fat and be a ninja. But yeah, they do have different movesets slightly, but that's about it. Yeah, and you just kind of do this over and over and over and over again, which was kind of its downside. This is the map, by the way. Like, it's massive, which is on the one hand, like, yay, exploration, but also, like, there's nothing to explore. It's the exact same thing. There's no secret unlockables, no findables. You just kind of have to keep pausing and checking the map to make sure you're on the right path. And to clear this level, you have to get the red, the yellow, the blue, which are just special fights. They have their own little mini rogue ninja bosses where the AI is a little bit better. And you just fight them, and then, yeah, you fight all three of those, and then you make your way to the exit point, which is the big red glowing in the top right corner. So that's kind of how this mode works, and you just kind of rinse and repeat, and the high score is kind of based off of the time you complete it in, as well as the number of enemies you kill. That's kind of how they calculate your high score. So yeah, it's almost like a pointless mode, especially in story mode, because you're like story mode, you're not rated on how many enemies you kill. So my strategy was always just to kind of jump over them, like run around them. Oh yeah, you get that crazy ninja every blue moon. He's kind of funny, just the way he runs. But yeah, I would always just kind of run and just jump past the enemies. But furthermore to this mode is you'll see how limited it is. Like, look at these boundaries. The invisible boundary doesn't even go to the wall. It's to keep the camera from clipping, obviously, into the wall and blocking view, and they didn't want to bother making like high definition, what they call culling. When you call out areas to keep them from. They didn't want to do that, so they just keep the camera from ever getting behind them by making these embarrassingly large boundaries. So the actual running space is embarrassingly small and narrow, considering the actual width of the spaces. Yeah, these are all things that I don't like about this mode. Also, the fog is rendered in every stage to block view from further, because the game's actually not loading the whole map. It's only loading small pieces that are in your immediate vicinity. I can actually disable fog in this, so you guys can see. Fog disable. Just so you guys can see this. So this is kind of how it looks. You see the parts just kind of loading in the background as I get closer. You see that? And they're just kind of coming into view. The background is stationary. It follows the player. So, yeah, so that's kind of how the illusion. So they put the fog effect in place on this stage to basically keep you from seeing too far into the distance as the parts of the stage are getting loaded in. I'll put this fog back on. It aids a little bit to the aesthetic. I'm not sure why there's mist in the forest stage when there's no Mist Ninja. Anyway, so that's kind of how Hurricane Clash works. Now, in contrast, I'm going to take you to the forest level in my game. So, just to show you kind of some of the differences between them. Okay, we get Naruto again, now we'll go to the Green Forest. Just give it a moment to load up the map. I'll get into this a little bit later in the video. So this is the same exact map, but how it looks in my game. So basically, I got rid of the fog because that was weird. I mean, there's a little bit of fog just for depth perception. There's a little bit of fog. Don't worry about that blue strip. That's something that happens in the editor sometimes. So yeah, it's just the blue. That's different in this mode. I added a little blue tint just for kind of an eeriness of the forest to give it a little bit more depth perception. My maps are fully rendered no matter how close or far you are. I mean, there is occlusion culling, which just means if you can't, like, obviously this is blocked off here, so nothing behind this tree is rendered in real time, but if you were to zoom the map out, you'd see all the parts of the map are loaded in at the same time. So that's kind of how my map works for one, so you can see super far into the distance to create, you know, to make the forest feel more open. The second thing I did was I actually gave it realistic boundaries. You can actually run up against the walls near the trees. There are some invisible boundaries, like behind the trees there is an invisible boundary. Oh, you're not supposed to go back there. Whoops. You should not be able to get behind the mountain. I have to modify that a little bit further to make sure you can't clip behind the boundaries. But yeah, basically, yeah, there is some invisible boundary behind the wall, just to make sure you can't jump over the wall, but the actual boundary immediately around the character is the actual full stage boundary. So if you run up on the grass, you can do that. Yeah, I also gave full camera control, so you can rotate the camera as needed, zoom in and out. And obviously, if you do run into a wall and clip behind, most of the stages don't have rear face backsides in there, so you should be able to do this with limited restrictions of camera view besides some of the more foreground options. But you do have that freedom to check behind. It's up to the player. I could get some really, this mode isn't worth getting clever culling where I'm culling out the trees. It's just not worth it for this mode and how complex it is and all the complex pieces. So you can put the camera behind the stage if you want to. It's not an issue in most stages, but yeah, most of the time you're on the main path and the camera is not going behind anyway. But yeah, there are some stages where if you're running, the camera can clip behind, so you just obviously adjust the camera if you need. I don't allow fighting in my 3D roam. That's because I just don't think the Clash Ninja battle system works well in 3D. That doesn't mean you won't be able to fight in this mode. Basically, the way fighting will happen when I get to that version of this mode is you'll have an encounter or a clash, to kind of go with that Clash Ninja name in the title. So if there's an enemy that spawns on, you will run up to them just like you do in the original EX mode, but when you encounter them, like actually make physical contact, it'll then switch to a quick versus screen of showing like versus, and then it'll start up a regular battle that'll take place in, like, you know, it'll take place here in this area. So you're in the forest area, you'll do the quick battle, and when you win, it'll resume back to where you were in this map with them lying on the ground defeated. So it's kind of a hybrid system where, yeah, you'll do an actual Clash Ninja match, but then switch back to the free roam in this kind of seamlessly integrated mode. So that's kind of how it will work when battles will happen, but in terms of the actual overworld, this is more of an overworld. I may add the ability to throw out jutsu, like maybe each character will be able to use their real-time jutsu here. So if you do see a horde of enemies, you can just throw a real-time jutsu at them to avoid having to fight them. You just throw a jutsu at them, wipe them out, and keep on going. Or if you want to have a full-on encounter, then you just run up to them and that'll start an actual formal battle if you want to fight them, or if your jutsu isn't strong enough to defeat them when it hits them. So I may do that for the real-time jutsu for the characters that have it. And then that'll give you some more ways to interact in the 3D mode besides just running around and exploring and jumping. But yeah, so that's some of the changes I've made. This mode particularly is just to find like a collectathon. You just you navigate the maze and find the probes, as many of you guys have probably already tried out. That's kind of how this mode works. Okay, so one more, some of the other differences I made. I'm gonna go back here and we're gonna select a different stage. I wanted each map to have its own personality. In this game, EX3, the only difference between each map is basically the visuals. So I wanted to make some of those differences. Sakura this time. Let's go to the coast. So yeah, once again, we're going to get that map that's going to have lots of mist, to which this one makes more sense. This was supposed to start at the mist stage. Let's try that again. And hopefully this time it starts. Maybe it's a part 1, part 2, where you have to do the forest stage and then it'll take you to the mist. Obviously Naruto just gets the Sakura thing. Let's try this again. I'll pick red. Maybe that has something to do with it. I don't know. I can't read Japanese. I've never actually played all these modes together. I was just, yeah. Let's see if this will... Okay, this is either a glitch or it's supposed to, oh, I see, yeah, no, it's not a glitch, you just gotta go to that area. Well, there's no point. I'm not gonna do that on camera, there's no point, but basically what works is all the maps are the exact same, they have the exact same limitations here, and with the super tight stage boundaries, the only thing that changes is, and same enemies, the only thing that changes are the visuals and the final boss. Each area is supposed to have its own Akatsuki. The forest is going to be Hidan and Kakuzu. The Genjutsu world is Itachi. The mountain region's Deidara, because Hidden Stone Village. The water stage is Kisame. And the desert stage is Sasori. So that's kind of how it works. Each stage has its own Akatsuki. Versus with my game, each stage has its own personality, coming from the maze layout, even down to the actual physical elements of it. So I can go straight to the stage in my game.
Just leave it to me.
Sure, I'll do the mist stage, why not? Also, in each stage that I did, I gave it a time of day change. So there's 2 variants of each stage. Just to change, again, give you more options. So there are 4 stages in the game now. I haven't added in the Itachi's Genjutsu world yet because I ran out of time. But each of the 4 stages I added get their time of day variances. So this is the mist variant of the water stage. So the mist is thicker in this. And I removed the barriers completely. So you can go anywhere that you can see. And also, again, in the original games, the path you were tied to was here, very tight. That means these other elements out here were just part of the background. But now these are elements you can actually interact with. You can stand on top of them, use them to gain extra height. So when you jump, you can gain extra distance. And so that's kind of the point of the water stage. It's an open world stage. You can go anywhere where you can jump at the risk of potentially drowning. If you underestimate a jump, for example, here, let's say I just jump out, you will die. And you'll teleport back to the last piece of land you were touching. So here, maybe I wanted to go there and I didn't make it quite, so I can maybe try from this corner, and then I can make the jump. So that's kind of how it's designed to work. The mist stage is more open, and then with all the mist, you can't necessarily see into the distance. So, you know, it's easiest to follow just the path, but if you see some rocks and you want to take a jump for it, like you can see the land just slightly, you can do that. And that's another thing about the stage. So normally the maze has to connect, because obviously if there's an invisible barrier, it needs to connect. On the mist stage, since it doesn't connect, since it doesn't have boundaries, this maze is actually allowed to generate pots that aren't connected to the main map. So you actually have to check the background and make sure that there's nothing out here. So this piece of land is not connected to the main ground. So if you were to just follow the main path to all the different branches, you would never reach that area. So you do need to be diligent and actually jump around and explore this map fully to find all the probes. Now, this is, again, if you're playing the version where you have to find someone, that's not necessarily true for when you're finding people. But in the probe version of this map, it does have that personality to generate islands that are exclusive. And that's exclusive to this map since there's no boundaries. So that's an example of maps having personality. This one having no boundaries, having the potential for secret islands that are hidden off in the distance, and you have to keep a keen eye. And being able to jump anywhere, use the stage pieces to gain extra height. Like I think there's probably something back here. Oh, it's over there. So yeah. So that's kind of how this map's personality is. And there is a variant of this map that doesn't have any mist. Yeah, you can switch the time of day, of course, using the L and R button. And then this version of the map is the same as the last one in terms of it's no boundaries. You can jump anywhere. It does allow you to generate islands that are separate. But this version, the whole point is you can see everything. So this map is it's just probably the easiest map, I would say, because you can see everything, you can see where everything is. So maybe your strategy could be you can zoom out and see where your next targets are. So I can see the probes are over there, and I can see a little bit more. And just the visuals, I love the way this looks. I gave it a little bit of a blue mist just to kind of, you know, give it some more depth perception like the Force, but you can see pretty much everything. Really useful in the when you're looking for your teammates. You can see, because the teammates may be hidden, you can see exactly where they are and then just head straight there. You can see exactly which paths you can jump over. And so that's kind of, this map's probably the easiest map. And I just love all the set pieces with the rocks, seeing the rocks in the background and all the different formations. Just looks super cool to me. Yeah, I just love the way it looks. Yeah, it just looks really cool. Seeing all the rocks like that fade into the distance and plotting your paths and seeing all the possible areas that you can get to. Super nice area doing that. I like this stage a lot. So that's kind of the point. Again, once more, there is one stage where there are areas you can get on, but they're not so easy to get to. It's kind of one of those situations where you need to really use the physics engine against itself. There's some weird slippery collision. I will go to the Crimson Desert. There's some collision that allows you to kind of bounce forward and high. So there's a high section in the desert that allows you to get up there if you really play with the physics a little bit.
I'll cut you to ribbons.
let's see. Let me find one. Okay, I gotta leave this area. I was there in the trailer just to kind of tease that you can get up. There's one. So you can get up there, but your normal jump isn't high enough. So if you jump against a slope, it'll give you some extra, well, a lot of extra height. And then, yeah, this ground is, you can stand on this ground. So yeah, you can get up here, and this just gives you some really nice views of the background. Obviously, it's kind of ugly out in the desert. I'll have to figure out a way to, for the outskirts of here, have a better backdrop than just plain sand. But until then, I have a few ideas on how I can do that. But until then, yeah, it's cool to kind of see the tops of the spikes. The spikes do block your view though, so even though you're really high up, you can see some things. I have gone up here a few times to just check some of the paths, like there's some versions of this map where it's elongated, and it's nice to come up here and see where your next the connecting paths are. But you can get up to some areas if you really try hard enough and work the engine. All right, the last thing I will show you guys is, well, not last thing, semi-last thing, and then one last thing will be that. The semi-last thing I'll show you is the elongated version. So there are actually two versions of each map, depending on the minigame you get, and there'll probably be more versions as I have more minigames. So that the maps we'll be looking at are the Find All maps. These are more intimate, smaller maps. They're more, much more turns and twists. Some paths can be linear, some paths can be more mazy. When you do the search and rescue, these maps take a little bit longer to generate. Let's see, let me go to a map I haven't been to. We'll go to the wastelands. Yeah, daytime. In search and rescue, these, since there's less things to find, you only have 3 people to find, and then return, I have a thing that I call elongated paths, which is where the map is basically elongated. So it's, figuratively speaking, twice as big. The paths are much longer and much more narrow between turns. So, so yeah, basically the last one is gridded every other. I'm not going to get into that. I'll show you on the next thing. It's complicated to explain it's complicated to explain when you don't program. But yeah, this is basically, these stages are twice as long in terms of the paths. So because of that, they take a little bit longer to generate, and I will show you the reason why after we generate it, just so I can show you the paths in person. Yeah, search and rescue does take a bit longer for this. I don't know how to fix this just yet. These mazes are extremely complex and complicated to do. It's got to generate. They're randomly generated, and they've got to figure themselves out how to generate a map within certain confines and certain parameters without causing glitches and issues, and making sure every path is closed to prevent you from getting out of bounds, while also making sure all the paths are connected to make sure there's no stray paths. It's a lot that goes into it. I also have to determine where each space is, which spaces are the furthest away from the characters. It's a lot of logic behind the scenes to get these maps working in a way that's fun. So they take a little bit longer to load in the editor specifically. In reality, when you build the game, they're a lot quicker. But yeah, sorry, it's going to be a minute for this one to load. Whenever you're ready, gang. I guess while we're using this to load, I guess I can go ahead and show you guys the last thing we'll talk about, because no sense in wasting time. So, oh, was it building? It looks like it was almost done. Maybe. Yeah, it looks like it's sending out the probes. Why is this running slow? Sorry, it's running super slow. Okay, it looks like it's, okay, it's almost done. Yeah, it's doing the final steps. Okay, I'll show you guys in the next round what's actually happening. It's pretty cool. I can basically do a view where I can show you what's happening in real time. All right, behind the white veil. All right, so this is the level finally loaded, and you'll see the paths are much longer. They're much longer now and wider, and you have an arrow now to point you in the general direction. I tried this on the smaller maps, and you just win within less than a minute, less than 2 minutes typically. So I did the elongated path just to give you a sense of a bigger world. So they're twice as big, actually a little bit more than twice as big, but the amount of space that's generated is twice as big. So you get these really long corridors, and the branching paths are much more fulfilling and satisfying to wander. And you can really get lost in here. See, I accidentally went in a circle. I'm back at the start now. So yeah, each map now has, again, these elongated versions for the search and rescue. So the maps do change, not just on random generator, but also based on which minigame you choose will help determine how the maps will generate when they're when the code is doing its thing. Let's see if I can find the first guy here. Man, these maps get so annoying sometimes when you reach a dead end. Like, you'll be like there. Like, how do I get over there? I hope this is the right way. You just kind of gotta, you do build kind of once you've played it enough times like me and building it, you'll kind of get a feel for how these generate. And I'll show you the logic behind this as well, behind selecting where the characters will spawn. All of that is controlled. All right, there we go. We found Sakura. So, and now we'll switch to the next person. So anyway, that's how it loads. So what I'll do now is I'm going to show you what's happening in the background. Okay. Let's just pick Naruto, and then I'm going to switch this to a minimized view. All right. I'm going to get this completely out of the way. All right. Actually, what stage do I want? Let's go to a stage with no mist. That looks good from the top view. We'll just go to the green forest, why not? Okay. I'm just going to set this scene up a little bit. All right. Let me pause. Go to the maze generator. So this is what I call a maze generator. It's going to just create my maze for me. What I'm going to do is I'm going to remove the skyblock so I can do a top-down view. And I'm going to start a new maze over. All right. I'm going to center it. There we go. Ooh, that fog's pretty thick. I'm going to turn off the... can I turn off the fog? Yeah, I can. I'm going to turn off the fog too, just so you guys can see this. All right. All right, so this is the area we're working with, and this maze is going to generate a 15 by 15 tile maze. Yeah. And the minimum fill just means 10% of this maze needs to actually have pieces. That's to keep it from just deading itself immediately. So it's going to have to go through several iterations. So this is how it spawns. Each time, each iteration, it's going to try to spawn new paths. If something's wrong with that path for any reason, whether it's a glitch, it's not connecting properly, it's not meeting the criteria, it's going to try a new maze. It's literal. This is hundreds of processes running at the same time, trying to figure out how it's going to build a maze that's constructible. So first it's going to build the path, and then once it finds a path that works, then it's going to build the environment around that. After the environment's built, that's going to give it the collision data it needs, and then we're going to probe. Okay, here's the probing state. I'm going to pause it really quickly. So once, what happened was it found a path that works based on the code, and now that it found a path that works, it's going to probe it. The probes are what's going to determine, and actually this maze is not going to survive. I see a problem with it. That's the probes will figure out. But basically what's happening here is I found a path that works. So this map it meets the 15 by 15 ratio. It's elongated because this is a search and rescue, so it doubled that size. And then it also did, so it found a path that works, then it built the environment, which gives a collision, and then it's going to send these probes out. They start at the starting point, and then they go to every single end piece. The end pieces is where all the spawn points are. So they're going to travel to that, and they're going to time themselves. And then once they time themselves at how long it takes to navigate this maze, it's using AI, by the way. This is fully AI. There's an AI built into Unity. So AI will automatically solve the maze and then find the correct path to get there, the quickest path. So they're going to take the quickest path to each of these endpoints, and they're going to time themselves. And then they're going to send back themselves with the time that it took them to get there. So the way it works is in search and rescue, the first player that you find will always be the one furthest away from the starting point, because I want you to be able to, to have fun and actually get to see this map. If they spawn at the closest point, it's going to be not that fun. They're super close, so they're always it looks like this one's probably going to be. Ooh, actually, yeah, it looks like down in here would probably be the furthest, because you've got to come up and around, down, and then back over here, versus this is kind of just zigzag down. So I'd probably say that's going to be the furthest point right here. This one, or potentially this one. One of these are going to be the furthest, so that'll be the first spawn point for your first character. It'll be whatever's going to take you the longest from the starting point. After that, then I just use basic math to calculate the furthest point from here. So rather than navigating a maze for this point, it's just going to be physically the furthest point. So whichever is the longest point from the start is the furthest. That's the first character. Then the longest from here would probably be up here. So that'll be your next goal, and then the final goal is going to be somewhere that's an equal distance away from this point, and the starting point, which will probably be somewhere over here. So that's kind of how I try to spread them out. So first is furthest, second is the furthest away from the first point physically on the map, and then the third point is somewhere that's a good distance away from all 3 points. And if there is no good distance, then we'll just randomize any one of the other points, which could be anywhere. So keep a keen eye out while you're running, because you may run into that final player. Let's say you're going here and the final player spawns, let's say, here, and you're coming down this path. You may actually run past them without noticing it. So it's nice to check, if you can, check and see if you're maybe running past someone, and go ahead and pick them up sooner. So yeah, it works in pretty clever ways. But the problem with this map is this has boundaries. So this is an island right here, and islands can't spawn. The probes will figure that out, because what happens is when the probe tries to go here, it won't be able to make it here because it's closed off, so this map will not survive. So it's gonna have to generate another, and there it goes, instantaneously generating another map. So it may do this a number of times. So if you guys are on that white loading screen for a while, just know it's cooking something good, and something that's gonna be very fun. And on a map this size, let me zoom out so I can try and see the whole thing. On a map this size, it could take a few tries. So just bear with it. It's trying to create something great. And then once it does, this map's not successful. I see some islands. Once it does create a successful map, I do have in the editor, it'll print me a success rate and kind of go over all the different versions, like what were all the problems that it ran into? Was it too small? Was it broken? Like, was it not connected? What were the issues with it? And what was the success rate in terms of how many tests it had to run before it generated. This one, that one looked good. I don't know what was wrong with that one. Obviously, the editor's slower. That's why this one's taking so much longer. In the build version, it does do this faster. So yeah, man, I try to get it down as much as possible by fixing what causes errors. Basically, every time a new piece is spawned and branches, all of these pieces are running at the exact same time, trying to figure out themselves, intersect other parts of it, and sometimes it may accidentally block itself off, and when those things happen, it creates a bad maze. I haven't figured out an intelligent way to teach it not to do that yet, and I've spent hours trying. So the best way I could find is if it does run into those glitches that I have not been able to figure out. I have figured out what causes the glitches, like where it's happening. I just haven't figured out the solve. So it'll just scrap that whole map. Instead of trying to figure out how to solve the issue, it'll just scrap it and try another one. And it basically keeps rinsing it. This one looks good. Usually when it pauses, okay, it built. I don't know what was wrong with that one. That one seemed to be a probe issue. Something happened in the probing section. Once you reach the probing section, it has a high chance of success. Yeah, it's getting up to the probing section and then getting through the probing section. All right, this one looks fine. Are we gonna get through this one? Maybe. This one looks good. No, the probe had an issue. I don't know what the probe's issue is, but there's an issue during the probing section. Come on, generate one good one for the fans. Okay, it looks like this one's gonna fix. I don't see any islands. They're not surviving the probe section. And I don't know why. You can see down here, it's already causing all these red flags and stuff like that. Again, as I work on it more and more as development processes, if I find a way to make it better, obviously, I will do that. This video's getting long, 30 minutes. I'll end it as soon as this builds, but I do want to show you guys a successful build. So this one looks like it built a map. This is a nice map. I kind of want to play this map. Didn't make it. Yeah, it was so challenging making this, guys. As you can see, imagine when this used to cause problems and I didn't know what the problems were. I spent way too much time trying to figure out what was going on. And trying to find out where the issues were, figure out how to fix it, using the probing section to find further glitches, ensuring that I do a number of tests to make sure. Are we gonna get a map that works? Are we getting a map that works? We got a map that works! So once all the probes reach the destinations, then the game will start up. Is this probe stuck? Oh, it's moving too fast. It's stuck. So they move so fast, they actually do have to move at a reasonable... Okay, there it goes. Okay, this map worked. So the probing station situation finally finished. And this is the map it settled on. That was a long time. Again, should never take this time in an actual build, but in the editor, man, these can take a minute to load up. I don't know why the editor is so much slower than real time. But yeah, so this is the final map for this one. So this is the starting point, and it has all these branching paths. Let's see where the furthest, and that one's probably going to be triggered as the furthest one because it took so long. But that was mostly because it got stuck in. Yeah, I was right. So there's Sakura at the furthest point. Or technically the longest point, but that was actually a glitch. It got stuck, and that was, again, an editor issue. So that point's closer. It should have been one of these others. That can happen from time to time, but yeah, the furthest point probably should have been down here. Or over here. Probably this one was the furthest. So anyway, they'll use this as the first because it took it the longest to get there. And then the next one, the furthest from that one, will probably be here, I guess. Let's see if we can guess. No, there's no character there. Let's see. Here to, oh, maybe over here. Oh, interesting. Not there either. Oh, there it is. There's the next furthest one. Because I see a character's there. And then, yeah, and then the other one will just be randomly generated somewhere. I do have this in a list where they are. I can go into my maze generator and I can actually search for them. This maze, by the way, includes, let's just count. There are 343 maze pieces in here. So just to give you guys perspective, it doesn't look that big, but there are 343 connecting maze pieces in this maze. That's why, again, it takes so long. It's randomly generating this. It's got to find a path that works. All the probes can get to. So Sakura is here at this this last point, and then Sai would be our next. Oh, that was the furthest point. So here to here, and then Yamato was randomly generated somewhere away from these 2 points. So it kind of gives you a good. You'll see most of the map when finding these. You won't probably ever come over here, but yeah, you will. Yeah, you'll see a good bit of this map. And of course, in 3D, that's what it would look like without your skybox involved. So yeah, anyway, that's how it works. I hope you guys enjoyed this kind of behind the scenes look into how these maps generate. That's how it works in behind the scenes. I will do a lot more with this. And sorry, quick note for that. I just realized I didn't show you guys the results. So quick note on that map we just generated. This was the results. So don't worry about the timer. The timer's not working yet. It took, because it's technically all happening at the same time. It's just taking real time. I don't know how to calculate. I haven't programmed it correctly to calculate time. Anyway, it took 143 attempts to make that final maze. So yeah, it can take a number of attempts. There were 143 different maze options that were tried just then when we watched that. More than half of them were too small, meaning it was trying to generate a maze, but there was just not enough pieces inside that maze for the space to justify it as a fun maze to navigate. They were just too small when they were generated. 11% of them were broken. Broken means that the path is not connected. So the probes tried to get, those are those islands when they're broken. This is usually ignored on the coast stage because the coast stage doesn't have boundaries, so it's okay if not every piece connects. There is, but 11% of these were not connecting, pieces that didn't connect. Spawners null. So this is these last ones basically are issues that happen when the maze is trying to close itself. So basically, if let's say a maze does 3 right turns and it dead ends into itself, sometimes it can connect itself and just make it another intersection, but other times it needs to dead end. And sometimes there's an issue when it's dead ending, it's not knowing what to do with that. That's basically where it causes all of these 3 issues. The spawners, whoever spawned it needs to tell them, hey, whoever told me to spawn here, I can't spawn here. I'm intersecting with another path. I need to not spawn. But if its parent, for some reason, it doesn't know who its parent is, who created it, like it's a connecting path, that's an issue, because then when it deletes itself, we now have an open path into out of bounds. So whenever, I don't know what causes that, every single piece should know exactly who spawned it, because it's just the piece in front of it. But whenever that glitch occurs, that 2% of the time that happened, that's an issue. It results in a piece being left open, meaning you can run into out of bounds if you reach that part of the road instead of it being closed off. So I have to generate a new map until I can figure out how to not do that, how to make sure every piece knows who spawned itself. Can't close is the same thing. A closing path means I'm building a path straight forward, I dead end somewhere, either I'm at the boundary or I hit another road, and I need to, instead of being a path, I need to be an end piece. So I need to swap myself out. Sometimes it just doesn't swap itself out. It just says, oh yeah, I don't know why, it just won't swap itself out. And that causes the can't close issue. It can't close the path off. And that again is a situation that we can't have. So we'd have to generate another area that happened 30% of the time. And the last time was is null. Is null just means we try to communicate with the piece on the stage to tell it to do something, whether it's anything, and for some reason the piece was null, meaning it's saying the piece it's trying to communicate with doesn't exist, even though it does, and it causes an issue 2% of the 2% of the time. That's an issue. So spawn a new map. So anyway, that's kind of how that works, and it does this however many times it needs to until it gets a map that works. I'll try to improve upon this if I figure out some of the ways. Glitches, I'll try to figure those out and make the load time quicker. But yeah, that's really the only thing that causes load time. It's longer on the search and rescue with those twice as big stages. Smaller stages like in the find all don't really have this issue much. Those are usually pretty instantaneous. Anyway, thanks again guys. Take care. Cheers.